Good day, everyone. Dream Phoenix coming at you. Today was supposed to be a Cetra's story, Birth of the Destroyer, the 1-year anniversary event in Never Crisis. But as I transferred files to my computer, I awoke this morning to find my Mac completely blank. But at least as I sort that out, today's question is one I believe to be fundamentally pertinent to the hearts and minds of we imagination adventurers as we try to intuit what is going on post-Rebirth for heroes and worlds alike. And what does it all mean? So let's get into it. Nude Gledane Dude says, I have slightly anonymized his name, but that was the gist of it. Can you unpack what you said about the Jenova attack on Sephiroth in Chapter 8, Season 1, First Soldier? How does that attack show that it's non-linear time? My understanding of nonlinear time is that it's quantum, like being in the Tesseract in Interstellar. You can affect the past, the future, and alternate times all as if it was normal. Is this what you think is going on? And if so, how does interstellar Tesseract craziness not distract from the story? Love your vids. Witness them. Witness them, brother. Monsieur Nude is referring to a video produced a few years ago about the Whispers and how all of the memories that they were and were attached to were teardrops in the rain. Interesting that at the end of Remake, we got raindrops, and at the end of Rebirth, we got Aerith's flower petals, which are a representation of her memories. Witness them. First and foremost, why care? Who gives a hoot about linear time versus whatever? In Interstellar, the protagonist was able to use non-linear time to communicate with the past in order to influence events towards his own ends. Anyone who becomes aware of this aspect of reality can act upon a given timeline in ways that would otherwise be supernatural, magical, if that individual had the necessary power to take advantage of the awareness. Suppose someone with this awareness and power has malevolent evil intent, such as Jenovaroth. Then all of a sudden, events in a given timeline, including what was once thought to be the immutable safety of the past, that which has already happened, it can be affected by this force of evil. Nothing is safe. If this Lovecraftian level horror were to unfold, we do not yet fully know what the effects would be in the present moment. Undoubtedly, however, we are going to find out. Second, what is linear time versus non-linear time? Linear time is the resilient illusion that makes up our reality. It's very intuitive to understand because it's how we interpret the world environment around us. Even though quantum physics experiments show that it is an illusion, time does not exist, but our consciousness perceives it as existing. What is linear time? If you set up 5 dominoes and tip over domino A, even a young child would know the order in which the dominoes would fall over. That's linear time. Further, if you never saw the dominoes, but I were to ask you what happens after I tip over domino A, you would know next to come is domino B. It seems like it is this absolute causal conga line. That is linear time. Non-linear time is a broad spectrum, but in the case of Gaia, as witnessed in the true nature of reality, it is being outside the dominoes and witnessing all of them right now. They're all happening simultaneously relative to you. What can this look like? The true nature of reality. No one memory was harder to access than any other. They're all happening right now. If you were someone with the necessary power and awareness to see all the dominoes at the same time, for instance, Jenovaroth, Minerva, Omni-Aerith, you could affect past, present, and even the future with equal ease, so long as the future is still in memory. We observed this with Glenn. Glenn, in Chapter 1, Episode 1, takes place years before the events of Final Fantasy VII. Glenn is able to see into the future. However, the future he sees is the relative moment when Genesis defects, which happens not long before Crisis Core and is still several years before the events of Final Fantasy VII. It is in memory. So Glenn was able to see the future, and he did so from an omniscient viewpoint. He was able to see a future that partially he was not there for, and he saw it with perfect accuracy. That would be a manifestation of someone taking advantage of nonlinear time. In Glenn's case, he's doing it unknowingly. Third, and quite likely this is the most important part for many people, are we actually witnessing nonlinear time? And is this something that is suggested, or do we have absolute proof? Yes, we've had suggestion of nonlinear time right from the beginning of Remake, but we have absolute proof of it in Chapter 8, Episode 1 of First Soldier. I know that is very strong wording, but it is absolute proof of non-linear time. There's no more question about it. In Remake, there was only one type of static, whether it came from an Aerith interaction, a Sephiroth interaction, or just Cloud remembering something. It was all the same static effect. Even when Cloud ran into Jenova for the first instance in Shinra Tower, it was the familiar green-tinged static effect. Across reality, there was no other type of static, including the ominous black horizontal bands that would plague Rebirth. The differentiation of static only began after the events of Remake, and yet, in this memory of Sephiroth's, we observe the hallmark of Jenovaroth, the black horizontal band static. This is especially perplexing because the First Soldier possibilities are shown to be in the Beagle world, plainly. So these events, by measurements of linear time, those dominoes, occurred in the past. You can actually measure how many years beforehand they occurred, because it's the same world. When did Genesis defect from Soldier? A certain number of years and months before Motorball would be fought, which is the approximate time of Singularity's collapse. By measurements of linear time, it is truly and utterly impossible for there to be Jenovaroth black horizontal bands in Sephiroth's memory of being a hero, as it happened long ago in the linear past. And yet, there, that horror is. So the black horizontal bands are revealing that non-linear time is very and horridly real, and Jenovaroth not only has an awareness of this, but is powerful enough to use it for wicked, insane purposes. What are those purposes? The conclusion I draw, not necessarily the truth, but what I believe, is that Jenovaroth is attacking Ore Sephiroth. As at the end of reunion that has begun, there can only be one truth for everything. Only one memory, one Sephiroth. Watashi is making sure that it's him. This idea of non-linear time interacting with linear lines up with the true nature of reality, amongst other phenomena that we have observed since 2020. And because this has been uniformly constant, it allows a certain confidence that even with reunion being nigh, and who knows all what that's going to mean, even with a fully formed Jenova, there is a bedrock of rules in which all heroes and villains and eldritch viruses must breathe and fight and cry and love in. No free rides for anybody. This allows the analytical mind to turn off and we all to get swept away on Gaia. As for if this extraordinary investiture into how the unseen things work on Gaia, if they would distract from the cheers and tears at Journey's End. However this art is true for you, I can't comment on that. I just remind that these truths have been there from the start. We're only discovering them now. The complication was always there. We're just learning about them. And consider, Frank Herbert's Dune had lockers full of notes piecing together the universe of Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, including 10,000 years of civilization going back to the Machine Crusade and the Butlerian Jihad. J.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings had volumes upon volumes of text discussing the world Frodo would find himself in, including how the cosmos were formed and what the gods were like before there was matter. Great exploration and exposition of a holistic, breathing, living multiverse that at all times is part of the same download as the original vision, gives emotion to the story, builds the inner fires of imagination through a firmament of effortless reason and intuitive rationale for why things happen the way they do, and none of it ever has to be something that you even care about. It's just something that's there. And I don't know this for sure, but I strongly suspect that the slow drip nature of Ever Crisis is allowing for much, much heavier inquiry of reality than will be available in the raw, brutal tumult of Part 3. We who are lucky enough to be paying attention now can smile privately in understanding when certain effects unfold on screen at Journey's End. To everyone else, they'll just believe what they see to be intense, emotionally evocative, no less moved than you. They just don't know why it happened. Monsieur Nude, thank you for the pertinent question. Imagination adventurers, I bid thee adieu.